13,000 years ago, as the last ice age faded, an apex predator vanished from the earth. Powerful, massive, social, intelligent. It hunted in packs, ruled ancient grasslands, and inspired legends across cultures. The dire wolf. But today, for the first time in human history, we face an astonishing question. Can extinction be reversed? Could the dire wolf actually come back? Welcome to the De-Extinction of the dire wolf. This is the story of the animal that disappeared, and the scientists trying to rewrite its fate. Before we talk about bringing them back, we need to understand what they were. The dire wolf, Oenocean dirus, once grouped with Canis dirus, lived across North America and parts of South America for hundreds of thousands of years. Fossils of dire wolves are especially abundant in the famous La Brea tar pits of California, where thousands of individuals were preserved. So, were dire wolves just big wolves? Not quite. They were bigger, heavier, and more muscular than modern gray wolves. They had stronger jaws capable of crushing thick Ice Age bone. Their prey included giant bison, horses, young mammoths, and megafauna that no longer roam today. Their build was designed not just for speed, but for power. Dire wolves were pack hunters, highly social, and, like modern wolves, likely capable of sophisticated cooperative strategies. Evidence suggests group hunting, strong social bonds, territorial behavior, possible hierarchical pack structure. But here's the twist. For over a century, scientists believed dire wolves were simply larger versions of gray wolves. Recent discoveries changed everything. For decades, paleontologists relied on bones and teeth. But bones alone can mislead us. Shape doesn't always tell the genetic story. As genetic sequencing technology advanced, scientists began extracting ancient DNA from dire wolf fossils. That's when things became unexpected. Their shock? Dire wolves are not just big wolves. Genetically, they were far more distant than imagined, separated from gray wolves, coyotes, and dogs by millions of years. They were a distinct lineage, a branch that diverged deep in evolutionary time. So different, in fact, that scientists reclassified them under a different genus entirely, Oenocean, meaning terrible wolf. This discovery matters enormously for de-extinction. Why? Because de-extinction often uses the DNA of closely related living species as a template. The further apart species are, the harder it becomes. Bringing back something very close to a gray wolf is one thing. Bringing back a dire wolf is something else entirely. 13,000 years ago, the world changed. Glaciers melted. Forests expanded. Grasslands shrank. The megafauna, the giant Ice Age herbivores, declined rapidly. Dire wolves depended on those massive prey animals. As those prey species vanished, dire wolves couldn't adapt fast enough. Meanwhile, gray wolves and coyotes, smaller and more flexible in diet, thrived. They could hunt deer, scavenge, survive in different terrains. Dire wolves, specialized predators of the Ice Age, lost their niche. Within just a few thousand years, they were gone. Extinction erased them from the living world. Or did it? Humans once thought extinction was final, absolute, permanent. But modern genetics changed that idea forever. We sequenced ancient genomes. We mapped evolutionary histories. We learned to read DNA like a time capsule. And now scientists are asking, if extinction is natural, is reversing it now possible? De-extinction isn't magic. It's a combination of ancient DNA sequencing, genome editing, cloning and assisted reproduction, selective breeding in modern relatives. The goal isn't to resurrect every extinct creature, but to restore lost ecological roles or learn from the past. Projects today are already working toward the woolly mammoth, the thylacine, Tasmanian tiger, the passenger pigeon, the Pyrenean ibex, and Ice Age ecosystems. And among these candidates stands the legendary dire wolf. Let's be clear. No lab today has a living dire wolf. But the theoretical roadmap exists, and research is advancing along neighboring paths. Scientists would need to sequence the dire wolf genome from preserved fossils, Identify genetic differences between dire wolves and modern species. Modify the DNA of a closely related living animal, likely a wolf-like canid. Create embryos with dire wolf-like traits. Implant and develop them using surrogate hosts. Technologies involved include CRISPR-based genome editing, induced pluripotent stem cells, cloning, and advanced reproductive biology. However, because dire wolves are not closely related to gray wolves, genetic reconstruction becomes far more challenging. There is no perfect modern surrogate species, so what would actually be created? Most likely, not a 100% original dire wolf, but a genetic and ecological proxy, an animal extremely similar in behavior, form, and environmental function. Something that looks, acts, and lives like a dire wolf, even if its genome isn't a perfect match of the ancient original. Just like mammoth projects aim to create mammoth-like elephants, not exact replicas. De-Extinction is not time travel. It is reconstruction. Why do this? Is it science fiction curiosity? Ego? Or is there a deeper reason? There are three major motivations behind de-extinction. First, ecological restoration. Large predators structure ecosystems. They control overgrazing, regulate herbivore populations, influence plant growth, shape entire landscapes. This is called trophic cascades, the same phenomenon seen when wolves were reintroduced to Yellowstone, where rivers and forests changed after predators returned. Second, scientific discovery. Resurrecting lost DNA teaches us about evolution, adaptation, disease resistance, genetics of extinction and survival. Third, moral responsibility. Some argue humans played roles, direct or indirect, in the extinction of many species. If our technologies caused loss, should our technologies repair it where possible? But others disagree, and that leads to the biggest question of all. Just because we can, should we? Ethicists, conservationists, and scientists are divided. Arguments for de-extinction include reviving lost biodiversity, restoring ecosystems, advancing medical and genetic technologies, inspiring public interest in conservation. Arguments against include animals may suffer during experimental reproduction. Habitats they once lived in no longer exist. Resources might be diverted from saving endangered species today. Revived predators could disrupt current ecosystems. And perhaps the most haunting concern, are we playing God? De-extinction forces humanity to confront the weight of its technological power. It is not just about science. It is about responsibility. Imagine a future reserve, large, wild, carefully controlled. Inside it lives a pack of dire wolf-like animals, reconstructed not just from DNA, but from knowledge. They hunt in coordinated movements. They maintain social hierarchies. Their presence reshapes grazing herds and plant growth. They resemble the lords of the Ice Age plains. But they are born in a world humans designed, not the one they evolved in. Questions arise. Where would such animals live? How would humans coexist with them? Would they remain in closed reserves? Could they ever roam freely? Reintroducing apex predators into modern landscapes is controversial enough when they are existing species. Doing the same with a recreated one would be even more complex. Yet the idea sparks the imagination of millions. Today, researchers are mapping dire wolf DNA, comparing genomes with wolves, dogs, and coyotes, studying ancient ecology, refining gene editing techniques. This is real science happening now. But we are not yet at the stage of living dire wolves walking across Earth again. Most experts agree, de-extinction requires years, even decades. Technology must become far more precise. Ethical frameworks must be established. Ecological impact studies must come first. The dire wolf remains, for now, an icon of a possible future, a symbol of the line between extinction and revival. A reminder of what once walked beside mammoths under Ice Age skies. When humans first arrived in the Americas, dire wolves were already there. They watched us. We watched them. two intelligent social hunters sharing the same land. Today, we are the last surviving members of that ancient coexistence. Every other large Ice Age hunter is gone. Saber-toothed cats, short-faced bears, American lions, and dire wolves. And now, the same species that watched them disappear is the first with the power to consider bringing them back. We stand at a turning point where extinction is no longer only fate, but potentially a choice. The truthful answer: the dire wolf has not yet returned. But for the first time in history, the question is not fantasy. It is science in progress. Pieces are falling into place: genome sequencing, reproductive technologies, environmental modeling. The idea that an animal lost for 13,000 years could one day run again across protected landscapes is no longer impossible, just uncertain. And whether that happens will depend on technology, ethics, funding, global environmental priorities, and humanity's collective choice. One day in the future, a researcher may open a gate, and a pack of dire wolf-like animals may emerge, lifting their heads to howl beneath a sunset their ancestors never saw. If that moment arrives, it will mark one of the greatest turning points in the story of life, when extinction ceased to be final. But the deeper question remains: will de-extinction teach us to respect life more? Or will it tempt us to believe nothing can truly be lost? The dire wolf story is not just about an ancient predator. It is about us, our power, our responsibility, our relationship with nature. Extinction wrote the last chapter of the dire wolf 13,000 years ago. Science has now opened the first page of the sequel. What happens next is still being written. The dire wolf lost to time, waiting in